Hi friends, today I'm in Tuvalu, a true microstate in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And if you thought tiny countries were boring, get ready to be surprised. Just 26 square kilometers in size, with only 11,000 people, about the size of a small neighborhood. They don't even need a president. Technically, the head of state is the King of Britain. And one of Tuvalu's main sources of income isn't oil, gas, or even tourism, it's their internet domain. Companies and broadcasters all over the world pay good money to use a website with the TV domain, but life here isn't only about domains and Polynesian beaches. Tuvalu is literally fighting for survival.
It is taking our lands bit by bit. It's taking our homes bit by bit. It is frightening.
According to NASA, by 2050, daily tides could flood half of Tuvalu's main atoll, Funafuti. By 2100, the whole country may be underwater. To preserve something, the government has even decided to move Tuvalu into cyberspace. There are hardly any roads here, no airport for big planes, just a tiny one for small aircraft, and boats that shuttle between the islands. So Tuvalu manages to be both so small you can walk across it in a couple of hours, and so global that the whole world uses its domain. Today we'll see how this little nation of 11,000 people lives in the middle of the ocean. But before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Just 5 minutes from the airport and the country ends. There's nothing more, and behind me, friends, is the local dump. The prison here, it has no guards at all.
How many prisoners inside? Two?
Pigs, pigs, pigs everywhere. Locals keep pigs right next to the airport. There they are. Hey, piggies. They looked at me like I was crazy. This isn't just a gym, it's a monument to bad planning. I'm not sure I'll ever come back to Tuvalu, but it's been good. I landed in Funafuti, a tiny island you can circle by motorbike in minutes. First, I stopped at the country's only runway. A little further on, I saw a massive dump right on the beach. Then I took a boat to a nearby islet, Papa Elise, where cottages stand without electricity. And on the way back, I visited the most open prison in the world.
We wish you a wonderful day here in Tuvalu.
Funny thing, at passport control, the officers don't have computers. They just have a printed passenger list, stamp your passport, and that's it. The moment you step outside, you're in the middle of everyday life. People sell pretty seashells. You can buy a necklace right on the spot. There are all sorts. Locals gather to greet or see off passengers. There isn't much entertainment here, so when a plane lands, the whole town comes to the airport. Hi there!
Where you staying? Lagoon Hotel.
So that must be the bank, Tuvalu Telecom. The police station. Everything here is very compact. So friends, I'm standing right on the runway of Tuvalu's only airport. Yes, Funafuti Airport is the one and only in Tuvalu. It sits on the atoll of the same name, which also happens to be the capital. There's just a single runway stretching 1.5 kilometers, about 1/7 of the island's length. Big enough for small planes, but that's it. The only direct flights come from Fiji. But there are just a few flights each week, which means very few tourists, only a couple thousand a year. The airport itself couldn't be simpler, a small terminal where you check in and wait for your flight. No loudspeakers, no chaos, no lounges, nothing fancy. It all feels very homey, and the most homey thing of all is the runway itself. Because really, it's like one giant town square. As I mentioned, planes land here only a few times a week. They come in from Fiji, stay about an hour to drop off and pick up passengers, and then they're gone. The rest of the time, people use the runway for motorcycles, kids play football, run around, draw on the pavement, or just stroll. It's more like a public square than an international runway. When a plane does arrive, they block it off for safety, but otherwise, no fences, no barbed wire, no guards. And yet, this is still an international airport, with customs, border control, and everything else. Quite a unique place. I came back here in the evening to double check, and sure enough, the place was buzzing with life almost 24/7. In the evenings, the runway turns into a giant square. Kids and teenagers play, people relax, sunbathe, gather, chat, because this is the only big, flat, clean space in the whole country.
Hi. How are you? Good.
That's the main thing. Wow, things are lively here, a football match. And we, friends, are right in the middle of it. What amazing kids. If you look all the way to the horizon, the runway's packed with people walking and hanging out. I almost got pulled into the game myself. It's funny, the runway has become the country's main place for community. People meet here, play, talk. This is where rare tourists arrive. This is where locals come and go. Everything happens right here because honestly, there's nowhere else big enough for everyone to gather. And they're all so positive. They're not sad about living in Tuvalu. They're not sad that one day it may disappear under the water. Amazing kids. Now, along the runway, you'll also find pig pens. Yes, pigs, pigs, pigs. Locals raise them right here near the airport. Look at them. Hey, piggies! Must be a bit hot for them. And honestly, if you fell in there, they might just eat you. But Tuvalu isn't only about pigs, it's also about new tech. The UN actually built a floating solar power station here. Why floating? Well, land is scarce, so they put it on a pond right next to the airport. Here's what it looks like. I'm not sure you can even step on these panels, they don't seem secured. I won't go any further, the rest are loose and I don't want to float off somewhere. Anyway, this is the floating power station. From what I can tell, it isn't fully connected yet. The cables don't go anywhere for now. But once it's running, they say soon it should power a desalination plant that will finally give Tuvalu clean drinking water. And as you can imagine, fresh water here is a big problem. Here, water is the main problem. But not because there's too little, it's because there's too much. On the world map, Tuvalu is just a tiny dot in the middle of the Pacific. Tuvalu doesn't need to explain how small it is. You can see it right here on this beach. On one side, the bay. On the other, the ocean waves. At this spot, the country is only 5 meters wide. Of course, some parts are a bit wider, but it's still tiny. The whole country covers just 26 square kilometers, about the size of a small European neighborhood. Tuvalu is made up of 9 little coral islands and atolls with a total population of just 11,000 people. That's more like a village than a country. The main transport here is on scooters. Sure, there are cars, but not many. Most people just ride scooters from one side of the island to the other. And that's it, the end of Tuvalu. Well, at least the end of the main island. What does it look like? A gorgeous beach, a trash, and the sea. One side, the lagoon, the other, the open ocean. Literally 5 minutes from the airport and the country just ends. Beyond that, only a chain of uninhabited islets. As you might guess, tourism isn't big here. That's why the beaches are often littered with garbage. You can't really call them beaches. No one's flying here for a swim, so that's the main island. Here you can see just how narrow it is. On one side, calm lagoon water with little islets on the horizon. Cross the road, walk 15 meters, and you're already at the ocean. That's the whole of Tuvalu, shore to shore in seconds. This is also why development is so difficult. There's simply no land for factories, plantations, or big projects. Just a thin strip of sand in the ocean. And behind me, a landfill. With only 11,000 people, you'd think waste wouldn't be such a big issue. But without proper recycling, it piles up fast. Some waste gets shipped abroad to Australia or New Zealand if it's hazardous or worth recycling. But most of it? It just ends up at the far end of the island where it's burned or buried. The result is a smoldering dump, always smoking. To me, that feels wasteful. They could at least separate the trash, burnable, non-burnable, recyclable. For example, there's tons of construction debris that could be reused to expand land like the Japanese do. But here everything just goes into one pile. You can see the problem on the beaches too. Aluminum beer cans everywhere and no one picks them up. If people could cash them in, locals would clean the beaches themselves. The simplest solution would be to press the cans, ship them to Australia once a year, and pay locals a few cents per can. They'd gladly collect them, and the island would be cleaner for it. At the same time, Tuvaluans prefer cleanliness in their homes, and not only at home. Well, friends, I've checked into the hotel, so it's time for a little room tour. This is one of the best hotels on the island. In general, Tuvalu has a problem with hotels. As you can imagine, tourists don't come here very often, and those who do usually come just to tick the box, so they don't really care much about where they stay. There are no good hotels here, but I managed to find one of the better ones. There's a basket here, no idea what it's for. Maybe for coconuts, maybe for dirty laundry, I'm not sure. They kindly left me a bar of soap and some toilet paper. Already not bad. Here's the room, a bed, pillows, towels folded into exotic flower shapes. Not bad. There was obviously something here at some point, but now it's gone. There's a kettle, so I can make myself some coffee. Nice. Air conditioning, and apparently a decent view of the neighboring buildings. Not bad, not bad. You might think that in such a tiny country, there's simply nowhere to spend money. But that's not the case. There's even a little branch of Temu here. The Nang store, it's run by Chinese owners. The display, as you can see, looks rather sad. Clothes are often just piled up. Imagine the cheapest Chinese clothing. You can rummage around here and find yourself a pair of pants. This is actually one of the more respectable stores. They sell pasta and other things. Judging by the labels, it's clear that everything comes straight from China. And not even export versions, just plain cheap goods. Clothespins, they just bring loads of goods from China and unpack it all here. Dolls, aircons, and a child watching TikTok. A doll costs 25 Australian dollars. A brilliant brand table fan, $55. Swimming goggles, $8. A small money safe, $65. A 15-meter extension cord, $20. All right, let's keep going. Now let's check out the country's main supermarket. Also run by Chinese owners, and the selection here is actually pretty interesting. First of all, lots of frozen goods. Ice cream, of course. Cones cost $2.50 each. A 2-liter tub of vanilla ice cream is $12. Frozen seafood sticks or something resembling them, $15. Frozen mussels, 29 per kilogram. A kilo of shrimp, 14. The shrimp are Australian and pretty big. Duck, wow. You can buy 2.5 kilos of duck for 29. Look at that, amazing. You could live with that. Toilet paper though, not sure what it costs. On the top shelves there are Falcon TVs. Not sure if you've even heard of them. No prices listed. There are also canned goods. For example, 400 grams of mushrooms for $4. Special discount, 5 for $10 or $2 each. A great deal. 5 cans of tuna for $10, normally $2 each. Definitely worth it. I even saw a notice here recently about math classes recruiting students. But judging by the fact they have to advertise, math clearly isn't too popular here. I wonder where the canned tuna is made. Maybe in Australia? Yes, packed in Australia. Anyway, after stocking up on bargain tuna, I set off to explore more of the island. And here it is, friends, the main and really the only police station in the country. A one-story building, a bit like a ranch. On Funafuti, a few dozen police officers work here. In the whole country, there are fewer than 100. The crime rate here is among the lowest in the world. According to various rankings, Tuvalu regularly ends up near the very top of the list of the safest countries, usually in the top 10 or top 20. The most common crimes here are moped thefts and drunken brawls, and even those happen only a few times a month. The police, by the way, don't just maintain order. They often help locals with everyday tasks. Sometimes they even step in as firefighters or medics. There aren't enough specialists, and outside help takes too long to arrive and is hard to request. Almost everyone here knows each other. Any incident quickly becomes a big event for the entire population. About 11,000 people. Tuvalu also has a prison, and judging by the map, this should be it. Let's check. No guards, nobody around, just a parked motorcycle. Okay, someone's coming. Hey, is it the prison?
Yeah, this is the prison.
Ah, okay, we just want to have a look.
No.
Ah, okay. All right, the guard came out and said, "This is a prison! Where do you think you've come to?" Entry is forbidden, but honestly, the place isn't guarded at all. There's even a pig wandering around inside the gates. Now the guard is heading over, looks like to shut the gate, which was wide open. Yep, he closed it, so no one enters. His shirt even says police. He didn't lock the gate though. The prison itself is just a one-story barrack. Those small windows on the side are probably the cells. Escaping from here would actually be quite easy. The only problem is, where would you run? The island is tiny, everyone knows each other, and there's really nowhere to hide. Maybe you could slip onto a ship and try to make it to another country, but that would be a pretty tough plan. So this is what Tuvalu's only prison looks like, probably the least secure prison in the world. No barbed wire, nothing. Just one policeman napping under a canopy, and that's it. I wonder how many inmates there are right now. There are some rusty abandoned cars nearby. And oh, someone's driving out. Hi,
Want to visit the prison?
can we?
But you must be arrange your permission to come inside for.
Okay, you work here?
Yeah, but I'm on midnight shift. Do you know the police officer?
Yeah.
Police station, sorry.
Yeah.
You must go there.
Okay. Okay. How many prisoners inside?
Only two.
Two? What happened there? What crime?
Domestic violence, like being drunk but it's okay. Another one is fighting.
Fighting.
Yeah. If you want to come inside, then just ask permission.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So yes, you can see the prison here if you really want to, but you'll need to head back to the station and get permission. It's funny, the guys asked. Why do you want to see the prison? What are you going to do there? Take pictures? They said they'd find out whether a visit was possible. Because here, the prison is one of the few local attractions. There are no museums, no theaters, nothing like that. So some tourists actually come to see the prison. Aside from that, there are 4 cells right in the police station. Here they are, the bars. The police station itself has definitely seen better days. The counter's been gnawed by mice. And the doors are propped open with a rock. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get permission. The bureaucratic machine in Tuvalu, as almost everywhere, doesn't work on weekends, but I was allowed to take a look at something else instead. So here's the local detention center. Sometimes there are wooden bunks, but what you notice most are the scribbled messages to the police. People actually sat here and drew right on the walls. All the cells are covered in writing. The toilet, judging by the smell, is somewhere in the corner. And that's it. So what can I say? You don't want to end up here? The conditions aren't just Spartan. It's basically a concrete box. If you're lucky, there's a wooden bunk. If not, then nothing. All you can do is scratch your messages into the walls with a nail for future inmates to read. While I was filming, word had already spread around town like it was breaking news. A journalist in Tuvalu, they said, and soon enough, people started showing me around themselves. I didn't mind, so let me introduce you to my new Tuvaluan friend. His name is Toby. He works on a boat ferrying people between the islands. Toby offered to take me to one of the neighboring islands. It's uninhabited, or well, almost. And where are you from?
I'm from here. I mean, not here, but I'm from the Vaitupu Island. Another island here in Tuvalu. We got 9 islands. I mean, yeah, eight islands, but one island is under the other island called Nulakita.
The island we're heading to is called Papa Ellis, and it's very close to Funafuti.
Small island here in Funafuti that they only have one house. We haven't been here a lot, so we don't know much about it. We can just show you around what they have and how they survive here. So the main source of transport here are the workboats, small boats. They go to mainland, buy food, then come.
From the main island, several smaller islands stretch outward. Some are uninhabited, while on others people do live, or at least spend weekends there. They come to get away from the so-called city bustle. Not that Funafuti has much bustle, but still, people need somewhere to escape to. So they come here. There are some little houses and everything is very clean. Families spend weekends here together, but otherwise there's nothing. No roads, no shops, no network, nothing at all. It's a truly wild island.
These big trees, it's called fetau. They are used to plant willow to help the erosion. Mostly these trees, the big ones.
So here you can clearly see how island life goes. People just stretch out in the shade by the sea. Here's one of the abandoned houses.
Mainly they abandon it because they have, but this is the ocean, right? When you go around the bush and you are hungry, you can just pull this and eat it. Try it, it's good.
They say this little snack is a coconut shoot.
You just chew.
It tastes like grass. These big plastic barrels are for collecting rainwater, which people then use to take a shower. That's how folks here get by. And it's a bit funny, because you already have the same kind of house on the main island. So I don't entirely get why people come here, but for locals, the main island feels too noisy. Too many people, motorcycles buzzing around. So to escape the big city, they take a boat over to a neighboring island, where they also have a house. It's super simple, basically just a canopy with a floor, and that's it. You can spend the whole weekend lying here. Sometimes the kids go into the sea with fishing rods and try to catch something. But mostly, relaxing here means doing absolutely nothing. People just lie around all day, maybe watch TikToks or videos on their phones if there's any network or something they downloaded beforehand. There's no electricity here, so they bring car batteries. Those are used to power little LED lamps or to charge their phones. That's about all the entertainment. It's like going to your summer house, Tuvalu style. And honestly, in this kind of heat, that's all you want to do. The air temperature is around 32, 33 degrees, but with the humidity it feels closer to 40. Even a short walk through the jungle is tiring. You just want to stop and flop under a shady roof like this. And look, friends, notice how incredibly clean it is here. Everything is swept, spotless. They literally pick up every leaf. People here are very tidy. They only relax once everything has been put in order.
That's called local alcohol.
See the bottles hanging from their palm tree?
You can also drink as a drink, like a soft drink.
They collect palm sap, and if you let it ferment, it turns into a kind of local booze, or you can drink it fresh.
These are the one baby It's died, eh? Burial.
There are graves right here in the yard. They're very simple, just outlined with stones. This one's a child and that one is a larger grave.
Now this another landowner also have his own plantation, his pumpkin here for him to survive.
People grow bananas here, and to help things grow better, they use compost. All the organic waste gets thrown in. Since this is like a summer house, people also keep vegetable gardens. Is this papaya or what? Friends, nobody here has been able to explain to me what this strange plant is. So I'll leave it to the experts. Let me know in the comments if this is papaya or if it's time for me to take a course in botany. Here's a big battery with a note that it was a gift from Taiwan. So yes, the Taiwanese gave the locals a battery. I think they also have a solar panel here, which powers 2 fans to give some relief from the heat.
Home biogas, the one you throw the rubbish inside, that will enable like a gas cylinder, you know, like a gas. But these are the rubbish. They throw it and the process starts and all. Then there you have the gas to on the stove
For what?
to cook. So I just told him that we're gonna go around for some more route to see the poultry farming and also some more farming here gone.
And this is the local stove made from an old barrel.
Just coming on the fire here.
You throw wood in, and here you've got a little oven.
You put the food inside.
And here are the solar panels for electricity. They're putting together a solar panel here. So this is what summer houses in Tuvalu look like. But behind all this chill, all this seeming introvert's paradise lies a looming ecological disaster.
It is taking our lands bit by bit. It's taking our homes bit by bit. It is frightening.
Tuvalu is one of the lowest lying countries on Earth. The highest points here are only about 4.5 meters above sea level. Because of global warming and the melting of polar ice, sea levels are slowly rising about 3.6 millimeters per year. For tiny island nations like Tuvalu, that's a very real problem. The rising water brings frequent flooding, salinizes the soil, and reduces the already limited supply of fresh water. Saltwater ruins crops, damages infrastructure, and is already making life difficult for locals. If nothing changes, in 50 years, Tuvalu could simply disappear beneath the sea. The land, the economic zone, even national sovereignty would be lost. The government of Tuvalu speaks about this danger constantly at international forums, calling on the world to fight climate change. It was right here in 2021 that Minister Simon Kofe delivered his viral address. Standing knee-deep in water, he urged participants of the climate conference to pay attention to Tuvalu and their plight.
We cannot wait for speeches when the sea is rising around us all the time. Climate mobility must come to the forefront. We must take bold, alternative action today to secure tomorrow.
Here, people are trying to adapt and somehow postpone the looming end. In terms of outside help, the islands of Tuvalu have signed climate agreements, including the Paris Agreement, and received support from various countries and organizations, for example, through the Green Climate Fund and the UN Development Program. That money goes into building dams and breakwaters, as well as improving water supply systems. I met Simon in Funafuti. He's now the Minister of Transport, Energy, Communications, and Innovation. Quite a multi-role official. And yet, he's still pushing just as hard to keep Tuvalu on the world map.
Many people already know that the climate is changing. And Tuvalu is suffering from rising sea levels. We are a low-lying island. You've seen for yourself how small and narrow the island is in places. Rising waters threaten us, and every year during high tides, parts of the island are flooded. It gets worse with each passing year. Scientists say islands like Tuvalu may be the first to disappear beneath the sea. The solution can only be global. Countries must reduce greenhouse gas emissions because they're heating the planet. But we also need to play our part. We're building dams and reclaiming land. If you have the chance, you'll see the reclamation work now underway. But we must keep contributing while also urging other countries on the world stage to take more meaningful action.
So far, Australia has been the biggest supporter. In Tuitaru 24, it committed 110 million Australian dollars to various Tuvaluan projects. It also promised to provide refuge for Tuvalu citizens if they ever decide to leave their homeland. But is there a plan B for Tuvalu?
First of all, we will not stop talking about this on the world stage. we will keep raising the issue. It is our moral duty. We want to be certain that we have done everything possible to draw attention to a crisis that will affect everyone. Many still think this is only Tuvalu's problem, but the signs are already clear: fires, floods, extreme weather. These impacts are spreading everywhere. It is only a matter of time. We will continue to raise our voice on the international stage, and we will do everything within our power here at home to prepare for the worst-case scenario.
But talk and appeals at the UN and other forums aren't enough. Tuvalu is going further. In 2022, an idea was put forward that sounds straight out of a sci-fi film to turn the country into a digital state. What does that mean? The plan is to create a digital nation. Imagine this. Tuvalu would have electronic citizenship, virtual government services, even its own cryptocurrency. Most intriguingly, they want to issue official digital passports so people can remain citizens of this online nation. In that way, Tuvalu could preserve its national identity and territorial rights even after the physical islands disappear beneath the sea. In other words, an entire country wants to move into the internet. The Tuvaluan government has already signed partnership agreements with 2 Australian companies, the Monkeys and Collider, to build a special website. This one. Here, visitors can show their support for the country's future. The site is still pretty bare bones, though. It all sounds bold and ambitious, but the idea of a virtual state raises a lot of questions. How would such a status work in real life? Would it protect citizens' rights? And could people really live in a meaningful way inside a digital country? Even Tuvaluans themselves don't yet have clear answers. Still, let's wish them luck. Meanwhile, I hop on a moped and ride 5 minutes to the other end of the island. This is Tuvalu's port, also located on Funafuti. We're now on the western side of the island's northern tip. The port mainly handles container cargo and its most important export, fish, and not just any fish, tuna, mostly skipjack, also known as striped tuna and yellowfin, shipped fresh, minced, or canned. Tuvalu has several fishing license contracts with Japan, the US, Australia, and others. That means foreign vessels pay for the right to fish in Tuvalu's exclusive economic zone. This alone brings in about $30 million a year, nearly 45% of Tuvalu's total income. Beyond that, there's little else to export. Tuvalu's economy is one of the smallest in the world. The country's GDP is around $60 million a year. Compared with other small states, Tuvalu lags far behind. For instance, Nauru's GDP is about 120 million. San Marino's, roughly 1.6 billion. Small Caribbean island nations are also much wealthier. Antigua and Barbuda, for example, reaches around 1.5 billion. As for per capita income, Tuvalu's is about $5,500 per year. That's low, of course, but at least roughly comparable to other Pacific nations like Micronesia or Fiji. And when it comes to Tuvalu's economy, few people know more than Siosipi Teo, the chief of Funafuti Island. Not only did he happily agree to explain everything, he even gave me a full tour of the island in his car. So, a few words about the economy. Do you produce anything here? Do you sell anything abroad?
There is almost no export now. There could be, but not in the volumes we would need. In the past, we actively sent our sailors to work abroad. Foreign companies hired our people, and that was very good for us. Today, though, the main source of income is fishing licenses. International companies fish in our waters, and that brings significant revenue to the government. So, foreign vessels take fish from Tuvaluan seas.
What about tourism? It seems there aren't many tourists in Tuvalu these days.
That's right, not many. One reason is our isolation, and also that tickets here are very expensive. It costs a lot to reach Tuvalu. But I am confident that tourism can be developed. If transport improves and flight prices come down, Tuvalu has plenty to show and to offer visitors.
Tuvalu does have one super quirky ace up its sleeve, its very own internet domain, .tv. The same one you see on video platforms and TV channels. So here's the deal. .tv is Tuvalu's national top-level domain. Doesn't sound like much, right? But in English, TV instantly means television. That makes this tiny country's domain a perfect fit for media companies, streamers, and video platforms. Back in the early 2000s, VeriSign bought the rights to manage .tv for around $50 million. Under a long-term deal, Tuvalu receives several million dollars in revenue every year. For a nation of just 11,000 people, that's basically a jackpot. You could say Tuvalu sold its internet brand instead of natural resources, like other countries might sell oil or gold. Of course, there are some more down-to-earth sources of income too. One is copra, dried coconut pulp. It's used for oil, soap, animal feed, and fertilizer. But nothing comes close to the revenue from fishing.
There are companies fishing in our waters, and we issue them licenses. The tuna caught here is sold all over the world. Most of it goes to canneries in Asia. So, if you're eating canned tuna, there's a good chance it comes from the Pacific. In fact, about half of the world's tuna catch comes from the Central Pacific Ocean. This is our primary income. Another source is the internet domain, .tv.
How much does it bring in?
Roughly $12 million a year.
12 million?
Yes. We also have a ship registry, which generates some revenue. And then there are remittances from our citizens working abroad. We used to have many sailors employed on international ships. Their numbers are shrinking now. But there are still Tuvaluans working in Australia and New Zealand through labor programs.
And this, friends, is a branch of the local bank. Tuvalu officially uses the Australian dollar. There's no central bank here that prints its own money. But Tuvalu does mint its own commemorative coins. You can't actually pay with them. They're more like souvenirs for tourists or collectors. There's just one bank in the whole country, the National Bank of Tuvalu. They'll help you open an account, exchange currency, and issue bank cards, Visa and MasterCard. The catch? Using them isn't always easy. Because of slow internet and technical limitations, especially on the outer islands, cards don't always work, which is why cash is king here. So you don't suddenly find yourself broke. In fact, cash is the simplest and most reliable way to pay for anything in Tuvalu. Prices are almost always listed in Australian dollars, so it's easy to get around and buy whatever you need. Here's an ATM of the National Bank of Tuvalu. Banking here is still in its early stages. Right now, only local cards work. No Visa, no MasterCard, at least not yet. They promise it'll come soon. So welcome to Tuvalu's first ever ATMs, a big milestone for a tiny country. You also have your own unique coins, right?
Yes, we do have our own coins, equal in value to Australian ones. But almost none are left now. Tourists tend to take them as souvenirs.
Can you buy them somewhere?
Not anymore. The government has stopped selling them.
You might wonder, don't the authorities have anything better to do than keep track of souvenir coins and chains? Checkmate, opposition critics. The political system here is so transparent that there are practically no serious scandals at all. And this, my friends, is the Parliament building. In Tuvalu, there is no president, no vice president either, no upper house of parliament, no sprawling ministries with hundreds of officials. Here it's all straightforward. There's the National Assembly, just 16 members of parliament, and the government, 9 people, including the prime minister. For comparison, in Russia, there are hundreds of ministers. Here, there are 8 for the entire country. They run the state and pass laws at the same time, practicality at its finest. The prime minister is elected by parliament from among their own ranks, and it's not just a formality. He's the real leader of politics here. Everything is compact, simple, and free of bureaucratic headaches, a kind of democracy in minimalist mode. And yes, formally, as I mentioned earlier, the head of state is the British monarch, represented here by the Governor General. But that's just a tradition. He has no actual influence on politics. Another fun detail, the judiciary is also very modest. There are local courts, but for serious cases they can bring in judges from neighboring islands or escalate to international courts. Tuvalu simply doesn't have enough lawyers with the training and experience to handle complex trials. So political life here is stripped down to the basics: no presidency, no multi-chambered parliaments, no bureaucratic red tape.
Within our society, we have a system of traditional chiefs. There are 60 of them, and every 2 years they elect a head chief. Right now, I am the head chief of Funafuti. The term is 2 years. You can be re-elected, but no more than 2 terms in a row. That's written into the constitution.
So it's like a mayor?
Not exactly. Funafuti also has a city council, which we call the Kaupula. Its leader is closer to what you'd think of as a mayor. The chiefs are different. They represent clans. Each of the 60 clans has its own chief. And then one of those chiefs is chosen to be the head chief.
And behind me, friends, is the courthouse. Probably the site of Tuvalu's only serious political drama. And it happened more than 10 years ago. The clash was between Prime Minister Willy Telavi and the opposition, led by Enele Sopoaga. It all started in December 2012, when MP Lotoala Metia passed away. That left the government without a majority in parliament. The Telavi government dragged its feet on holding a by-election, despite pressure from the opposition. Finally, in June 2013, the High Court ordered elections to be held within 28 days. The opposition even appealed to Governor General Sir Iacoba Italeli to step in. Italeli intervened and ordered Parliament to reconvene on July 30th. The Prime Minister was not thrilled. He wanted to hang on to power a little longer. But in August 2013, the crisis came to an end. Parliament voted to remove Telavi, and Enele Sopoaga became the new Prime Minister. Is everything calm now?
Yes, everything is calm. Nothing like that is happening anymore.
Do you have an opposition?
Yes, there is an opposition.
What about opposition media?
We have only one media outlet.
One?
Yes, just one.
Is it state-owned or private?
By law, it's independent, but the government provides the funding.
So, not exactly independent. It depends on the government. So there are no truly independent media outlets. What about bloggers? Are there influential local bloggers who write about politics?
I think social media is already starting to influence life in Tuvalu. More and more people go online and share their opinions. In some ways, it fills the same role as the media. It raises questions and voices concerns, often directed at the government.
And what are people unhappy about? What do they usually talk about on social media? What's bothering them, your work or the government's work?
For example, if ferry services stop, the electricity goes out, students run into problems, or a crime happens, people go online. They share opinions, they complain, not just about the government, but sometimes about each other too. That's what people talk about on social media.
And the courthouse? Well, like most things in Tuvalu, it's not the prettiest sight. The sign looks a little sad. And here's Themis, blindfolded, holding her sword and scales, standing under the blazing sun. Let's just say it all looks a bit worn out. Here's the judge's office. Over there, the courtroom. And here's the schedule posted on the wall. Who's on trial and for what? It's all very lively here. Don't really know what happened though. And here's an abandoned car with flat tires. Maybe it's evidence, maybe not. A couple of buckets lying around. A peeling door, a half-rotted scooter. And well, public toilets. So yes, you get the picture. Justice here runs on the minimalist setting too. But Tuvalu, small as it is, has its principles. It's one of only 11 UN member states that officially recognize Taiwan. Now, Taiwan is a self-governing island, but Beijing insists it's just a province under the One China policy. Which means Tuvalu's support for Taiwan often goes against China's line. Tuvalu has recognized Taiwan since 1979, and the authorities often explain it's not only about politics, Tuvalu is a deeply Christian country cautious about communism, and as we know, mainland China is communist. In 2013, Tuvalu opened an embassy in Taipei. In 2022, it signed an agreement with Taiwan to protect marine resources from poachers. That same year, Tuvalu's minister Simon Kofe even refused to attend a UN Ocean Conference because China blocked Taiwan's delegation. A clear gesture of solidarity. Fast forward to December 2024, Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te personally thanked Tuvalu for its friendship and promised deeper cooperation. In 2023-2024, Taiwan supplied patrol boats for Tuvalu's maritime security, and in 2025 it plans to help build a brand new parliament here in Funafuti. Behind me is also a small farm built with Taiwanese funding. Big sign out front, local workers inside growing tomatoes and other vegetables.
This flag is Taiwan.
Taiwan.
Taiwan ambassador.
Yeah, the ambassador stays there.
How many ambassadors are here from?
There's one from Taiwan, and we have an Australian High Commissioner. They are the two embassies here.
You recognize Taiwan as independent state?
Yes, well actually, yeah, we are with Taiwan. Most of the Pacific countries have moved away from Taiwan.
And no ties with mainland China, only Taiwan?
That's right.
So you do recognize Taiwan's independence?
Yes, since 1979, when diplomatic relations were established.
Back then, many countries recognized Taiwan. Now, only 11 worldwide.
And just 3 in the Pacific.
Does Taiwan help you?
Yes. Taiwan supports our development and finances infrastructure projects.
Like what?
For example, the new parliament building. Construction will begin soon.
A new parliament building?
Yes, Taiwan also built the old government building. They provide budget support and scholarships for our students. They've been our partner for a long time. China might be able to offer more money. But for our government, it's not about money. We value Taiwan's system and values.
In Tuvalu, almost everyone is Christian. About 90% of the population are Protestants or Calvinists, the legacy of missionaries who arrived here in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Catholics are much fewer, just about 1%. There are also Baptists, Methodists, and Seventh-day Adventists, and everyone coexists peacefully, like good neighbors. But despite such a huge Christian presence, traditional beliefs and rituals haven't disappeared. They've blended into everyday life without causing any spiritual collisions. And of course, the church here isn't just a place to pray, it's the true community hub. This is where people share news, gossip with neighbors, and of course discuss the price of tuna. The church works like a local club, only with a spiritual twist. And as for other kinds of clubs, Tuvalu doesn't really have those. Today is Sunday, friends, and on the one hand, it's a good day. People head to church, no one's working. On the other hand, literally, no one is working. Every store, every restaurant, everything is closed. You can't buy water, let alone anything stronger. When I ask around, okay, so what is open? Everyone just looks at me and says, it's Sunday, meaning nothing. Allegedly, there's even a black market somewhere where you can score a can of beer. So far, no luck, everything is shut. The streets are full of people in their Sunday best, parking their motorbikes outside while the church service goes on. On Sundays, not only is work forbidden, not only is every shop closed, but you can't buy alcohol at all, not even as a tourist, not even in your hotel. The hotel fridge might have beer, but it's locked up. And no amount of pleading helps. The staff just shrug and say, police check everything. The fine, up to $1,000 if you sell alcohol on a Sunday. That's right, no sales, not in hotels, not from locals, nowhere. So even if you're on the beach, sweating in the heat, dreaming of an ice-cold beer, forget it. Not happening. The police keep strict watch. Sell a beer on a Sunday, it's a fine, maybe even jail. A real nightmare. And overall, Tuvaluans aren't in much of a hurry, even though in 50 years the ocean may swallow their islands. I asked the chief in Funafuti why. The answer was simple. They just have different priorities.
The people of Tuvalu live a happy and fairly simple life. But in recent years, things have been gradually changing. In the past, life was much more connected to nature. Morning chores, fishing, physical labor. Everyday life was shaped by work with the land and the sea. People lived simply, taking only what they needed. If you needed fish, you went out and caught it. Today, though, people are much more dependent on imported products. And when something runs out in the shops, it affects everyone. That's a noticeable change compared to how previous generations lived.
Here, they don't rush after globalization and value something different.
For me, being Tuvaluan means living by the values of our culture. The language, anyone can learn that. But the spirit, the values, those are passed down through generations. Our values are love and respect. These are central to us. And we must hold on to them, even as global culture tries to impose its own version of what a good society looks like. For us, it's different.
And what are the downsides here?
I wouldn't say there are many. Mostly in the field of education. Many families send their children to study abroad, to Australia or New Zealand on scholarship, or sometimes to Fiji. In Tuvalu itself, there are just 2 secondary schools, one on Funafuti and another on the outer island of Vaitupu. Together, they only go up to grade 6. That's enough for basic schooling.
And this is what one of the schools looks like. It was built recently in a kind of traditional style. Not a modern roof, but one woven from palm leaves. The post, also palm, I think. Inside there's a blackboard, a schedule on the wall, and small chairs. You can see the subjects: English, math, geography, history. And the classroom door, just a simple wooden gate. The whole place looks new, and you can tell it was built without nails, just like the ancestors did. Everything tied together with ropes. The only modern touch? Electricity. They've run some lights. Some classrooms even have makeshift walls, but overall the structures are very light. For anything beyond this, kids usually go to Fiji or Australia. But education isn't the only challenge. Healthcare here is also limited. The main hospital looks like a small-town clinic in some remote corner of Central Asia. You can get basic treatment, wounds, colds, prenatal care. But for any serious surgery, patients are flown to New Zealand, Australia, or Fiji. Why is it this way? A lot comes down to money and infrastructure. The country doesn't have enough money, there are no universities or medical schools, so they can't train their own doctors. Specialists are few, and most of them are foreign workers on short-term contracts. Young Tuvaluans prefer to study abroad. And many don't return, salaries here are low, working conditions are tough. Food is another issue. The soil is poor, the land is tiny, so most of the food is imported. That local diet now is mostly white rice, canned goods, sugary sodas, and processed foods. The result? Rising rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, which means people here need constant medical care and medication. But Tuvalu often lacks essential medicines and equipment, and bringing in supplies in large quantities is both expensive and slow, so if you're planning to visit Tuvalu, make sure to pack a good first aid kit and get proper travel insurance. Because if something serious happens, you may well need to be evacuated to another country. And here it is, the main hospital of Tuvalu. There are a few ambulances, but the area looks a little flooded. I'm not sure it's a good idea to drive any further in. I learned that surgeries are performed here. Simple ones, like appendectomies. They do have an operating room, and even a small intensive care unit. But I wanted to find out what people on Funafuti do to stay healthy before they ever get to the hospital. As you might have guessed, Tuvalu doesn't have much in the way of infrastructure. No town squares, no landscape parks, no public spaces like we're used to. Just a narrow strip of land in the sea. But recently the country opened its very first fitness facility. Well, technically they call it a fitness park.
Здесь недавно открыли первый и единственный в стране фитнес-зал. Это точнее называется фитнес-парк.
And here it is behind me, quite a beauty. Why did it appear here? Because Tuvalu faces a big health problem, obesity. Tuvalu actually ranks among the top 5 countries in the world for obesity. Around 70% of the local population is obese. So the authorities decided to build an open-air gym. The idea was that people would exercise, lose weight, and maybe the country would slip a little lower in the global obesity rankings. Unfortunately, no one thought about what happens when you put metal exercise machines right next to the ocean. A year later, everything is rusted. No miracle occurred. The equipment simply corroded and became unusable. Now the fitness park is less of a gym and more of a monument to poor planning. A few machines still work, but most are rusted through. The sign, though, is still proudly standing.
Все тут в таком очень грустном состоянии. Все это заржавело и никому не нужно. Но, кстати, вот табличка осталась. Фитнес-парк.
For the record, the park was built in 2019, donated by some well-meaning organization.
Этот роскошный фитнес-парк подарила.
And just nearby, the only football field in Funafuti. By local standards, it's huge. The pitch itself is very simple, no stands, no frills. A pure masterpiece of minimalism, more like a meadow, with patches of grass mixed with sand and dirt. Its size changes with the tides. Sometimes part of it gets flooded. The equipment is bare bones, just goalposts, which double for rugby, since that's a popular sport here. A small canopy provides shade for spectators, but when there's a match, everyone comes. Practically the whole island gathers. It's a real community event. Tuvalu even has a national team that competes in regional Oceania tournaments. Of course, it's hard for them to match bigger island nations. The biggest obstacle is the lack of infrastructure and professional training conditions. Still, the dream lives on. Kids train, people play, and they hope that someday football in Tuvalu will reach a higher level. For now, the field remains unmowed and uneven. Just a couple of goalposts, a canopy, one trash bin, and that's it. All of it sits right here, running alongside the airport runway, a typical Tuvalu scene. This is what most of the abandoned machinery on the island looks like. People just leave it where it breaks down, and soon the local plants start reclaiming it. Removing old cars from here is expensive, so they are often just dumped by the roadside, left to rust and rot. Luckily, the tropical heat and salty ocean air take care of things pretty quickly. After a few decades, all that remains is a small rusty patch, and then even that disappears. But none of this seems to bother the locals. They still seem perfectly happy. Would you like to leave Tuvalu?
I prefer to live and work here. I could go abroad only for studies. But I wouldn't want to emigrate permanently.
So, you want to stay here for the rest of your life?
That depends on climate change and on my future here.
If you had to leave, where would you go?
I don't know.
Maybe Australia?
There are many places I'd like to visit, but I haven't decided where I'd go if I had to move. For now, we are fighting climate change to survive because we don't want to leave our homeland.
And here are people already heading to the airport with their suitcases. The flight leaves at 11 a.m., but it's only 8:30, and passengers are already gathering outside. This airport is basically just a small hangar. It's the Inli flight. The plane is tiny, there are no lines, no fuss, but still, everyone shows up 2.5 hours early. Because there must be order. It says it's an international flight, so officially you're supposed to arrive 3 hours before departure. Even at my hotel this morning, I came down for breakfast around 7. They told me, well, time to check out, you have to head to the airport. To give you some perspective, the hotel building is right here, and the airport is right there. It's a 2-minute walk. Yet the receptionist insisted I should check out because, you know, international flight, anything could happen. I said, no thanks, I'll show up maybe an hour before, or even 30-40 minutes. That leaves me a little more time to soak in the spirit of Tuvaluan minimalism. Or, at worst, to listen to the local singers, if you're really bored. They're keeping themselves entertained. Onlookers gather to watch the passengers depart. And here comes our little plane. I'm not sure if I'll ever return to Tuvalu, but it's been good. And that's it, my friends. Tuvalu, a tiny dot on the map, almost accidentally left floating in the Pacific. There's hardly anything here, and that's the beauty of it. People live simply, they don't complain, they smile, they sing on the shore in the evenings, they fix their boats with the radio playing in the background. Around them is only the sea. Inside them, peace. It feels like these people know very well that their time is short, that the ocean is advancing, that the future is uncertain. And yet, they don't despair. They don't wait for things to get better, and they don't waste their energy on what if. There is something strong in that, maybe something we could all learn. So if you've been waiting for a sign to stop rushing through life, here it is. And now, I move on. Friends, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. It really helps. And thank you for watching.